yesterday kind of finished with a slide, which is that, I think, for the people who were here yesterday. And I want to go through the various bits of that in relationship to perhaps what we're doing in Liverpool. So in terms of the kind of clinical outcomes, a lot of this I've already discussed yesterday. We discuss around 75 new patients annually with cholangiocarcinoma through our kind of tumour board MDT. We've done about 100 resections for hilar cholangiocarcinoma over the last 10 odd years, and about 35 resections for intrahepatic cholangiocarcinoma. And that kind of relates to what we think as surgeons is the incidence of this type of disease, that the perihilar cholangiocarcinoma is probably the most commonest. But as we've heard again yesterday, the rate of intrahepatic cholangiocarcinoma is increasing, and obviously as surgeons we do not tend to resect patients who've got multifocal disease within the liver, metastatic disease. So perhaps that's why the number of intrahepatic resections are less. And again, I've shown this data. These are kind of operations that are challenging. There's a lot of morbidity and mortality, unfortunately, still. This is a kind of highly complex operation. And again, as I showed yesterday, even in a European cohort, the hospital mortality and the 90-day mortality is probably about 14% odd. But why do we do this? Because of this. So this is again our data. If we can get a patient to resection, half of them will be alive beyond 4 years and potentially cured in long term. The red line, I think, is quite interesting, and maybe focus a bit on that, actually, because this is important. These are the patients who, unfortunately, aren't curative in our MDT, do not have an operation, are being managed in a palliative setting with optimal stenting, systemic chemotherapy as well. And half of those patients will be alive at 1.4 years. Now, if you look at the data from the clinical trials, with the addition of chemotherapy, which is now the standard of care in the palliative setting, survival has improved from 9 months to about 12, just shy of 12 months. But actually, if you look after these patients and don't allow them to present to a local district hospital and die of cholangitis, you can actually salvage these patients. And this takes a lot of hard work from our medical gastroenterology team, and we've experts there at this. And they're supported by this army of specialist nurses, and you heard from 2 of our specialist nurses on Wednesday evening. But still, a proportion of patients are just too frail for any treatment options. A lot of these patients will have intrahepatic cholangiocarcinoma, metastatic disease, but won't necessarily be jaundiced, so don't need ability intervention, but they're too frail to have systemic chemotherapy, and the survival in that group of patients, unfortunately, is a matter of months. So that's the sad reality of this disease. Again, we've shown long-term survival data there compared to other centres, both in the UK. And this is published work on the whole, apart from the Liverpool one, which we're working on a publication. So that gives you kind of the clinical background. I think research and innovation is crucial, and you've heard a lot about this, and there's a lot of people who are a lot brainier than me sitting in here who are focusing on that. This gives a kind of snippet of what we've been doing in Liverpool over the last 10 odd years. And generally our kind of research is focused on 3 broad aims. There's a lot of work being done on colorectal liver metastases, and a lot of my colleagues are focusing on that. And each of these bars is a PhD or an MD student. The cholangiocarcinoma research is something that basically myself and our team is focusing on. We've got a number of people who are working through the process, including Nick, who's had his MD awarded, and Mark and Tim, who's with us today, are working through their projects. And interestingly, we've got a liver regeneration program as well. And as a unit, you know, we've been publishing regularly. There's probably hitting 200 papers from the surgical unit, and certainly for us, the AMMF grants have been a lifeline, and we have to thank Helen and the team for that. Specific to cholangiocarcinoma, we've now actually got 18 clinical publications. We were one of the largest recruiters to BILCAP, and I believe we're probably the second largest recruiter currently to Actica, hopefully soon to be the largest. So we're active clinically, but also supporting national trials. This is really important as well. So some time ago, we talked to our pathologists, and this is key, and I know there's some pathologists in the room as well, about getting tissue from theatre to the lab, and that has been crucial. And over 250 patients in that time have been kind enough to donate that tissue. And in about 2017, we really focused on the perihilar cholangiocarcinoma cohort of patients, which we feel is an area of unmet need. And we've been actively getting tissue from the lab to theatre, and this is fresh tissue. We have a kind of biobank of this, both the paraffin-embedded high-quality samples and also the fresh samples, which are now probably nearer 30. So this is a resource of over 100 high-quality specimens that can be used for the research. Now, the other important thing regarding this particular thing is that this is now on the NIHR portfolio as a standalone study. And so if any centre in the UK wants to use the protocol and start to store the tissue locally, you can use it. You can get access to research nurse support and things like that. So you can certainly buddy on to that and then just start to develop your own program. But getting tissue from theatre to the labs is crucial to what I think has been some of our success. So we've got this biobank of, we've been focusing on the hilar cholangiomas, but we also got palliative cases as well. I mentioned a bit about this yesterday, so if I bore you again, please let me know. But what we found, which is interesting, which Tim will talk about a bit more in detail, is that these patients have different mutations than what we previously thought of, and at least half our patients with hilar cholangiocarcinoma do have mutations that can be targeted by a drug. So that is perhaps interesting to note. We talked about single cell sequencing. That probably was a world first when we did it, and we're looking through the data currently. So where are we going? So Mark Quinn is currently working through the immense amounts of data from the single cell sequencing, and I hope next year he'll be able to present. Unfortunately, sends his apologies for this year, but the data is still being processed. This was a new mutation that we found in a lot of our patients, and again, Tim will touch on to that, so we need to do some more work on that. I think it's important to have mechanistic work, and then Laura will cover that next as well. But we're keen to collaborate and work with everyone else, so talk to us, okay? Education and training. I mean, as surgeons, I mean, the reality is, the only thing that we can achieve is pass the knowledge on to the next generation. That's all we can do. We do not leave great works of art, And for us, the senior fellow program in Liverpool is crucial, but also we have fantastic local deanery trainees who come through the unit. So in terms of fellowship, it's appointed annually. It's for surgeons who've basically completed their training and want to get focused hepatability experience, and they get access to all aspects of that. And they get to do a lot of the surgery under supervision, but crucially, they do get experience in the surgery for hilar cholangiocarcinoma, and we're probably one of the few centres in the country where this does happen. And these are the folk, We've got people in New Zealand, in India, in the Middle East, in Europe. We need someone from the Americas, and then the sun will never set on a Liverpool trainee. And it's surrounded by the glue that keeps us together, which is the broader team. So when you come to us, this is the team behind everything that keeps it working. I really want to thank all of those guys as well. I think that's me done.